Once we start seeing clients in the office, because we, I'm on the board, we just passed, we made a decision that people could come to the office to see us face to face if they could see that. And the second decision came that it would be up to the clinician to determine whether or not to be masked in the office with the client or not, which would be the clinician's determination. And then the third thing is that everybody in common areas in the building would wear masks. There are some people who are not getting vaccinated and want everybody to wear masks all the time. We said no. If you worry about it, get the vaccine or get the vaccine, you can wear a mask. But other people that have been vaccinated can choose whether or not to be, maskless in their office. Who wants to go to a hospital where people treating you or may not be vaccinated? And this isn't no, it's they have to take some shots.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta take those off. Because that was the okay, so when I went to Wayne, we always undergrad science classes. We still have to do science classes today. But I got taking an extra lab class. You can do a math class, or you can do a lab. So they substituted. I'm not even a lab, but I did. It's motivated. But by that time, I don't taught myself when I get one teacher, I could almost
Hello. Hello, Dave.
and that I did not have to take a lab. That's how I got this. Because if I had to take a lab, I was going to be. Like the birds, you turn around and it's everybody's on.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, how y'all doing? Okay, welcome back for those of you who have been on a break. And greetings to those of you who I see just about every day. It's wonderful, it's always wonderful to welcome community into our space, into the Ludington Center, the home of the School of Public Purpose and Professional Advancement. My name is Ashley Woodson, and I'm the dean of the school, and we're so excited to be the space that gets to facilitate BritX Talks this year. Now, one thing that I haven't quite learned in my 3 months so far at Albion College is when Brits break into spontaneous applause. And usually people do that right after I say my name. I'm going to give you an opportunity to just start clapping for me. Okay. Thank you. Stop, please. Stop, please. Welcome. So we are here for BritX Talk to celebrate some of our amazing Alumni Legacy Award winners. We are excited to have Dr. Thomas, Caryn, Shea, Gardner, Kirby, and Dr. Griffin-Burress in the house today. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And I look forward to meeting each of you either today or at one of the many events over the course of this weekend. So my favorite homecoming song, I am a grad of Saginaw Valley State University and Michigan State University, and my favorite homecoming song is Nuck If You Buck. But I figured that might not be the most appropriate song to quote lyrics from, so instead I'm going to do, you can pick sides, Stephanie Mills or Diana Ross, but I'll do Home from the Wiz. What color are Dorothy's slippers in the Wiz? You're not right, not in the Wiz. Silver. Silver slippers in the Wiz. So if you haven't seen it with Michael Jackson, Ted Ross, Nipsey Russell, and Diana Ross, I'm going to need you to pull that up and stream that this weekend. But it's a really awesome song that the Dorothy character sings, that she realizes that she does have a pathway back home. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home. I wish I was back there with the friends I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall grass bend into leaning. Suddenly the snowflakes that fall have a meaning. Sprinkling the scene makes it all clean. Suddenly my world's gonna change its fate, but I still know where I'm going. I have had my mind spun around in space, and I think COVID did that for a lot of us. Is somebody playing a song? We got a solo in the back? And yet I've watched it growing. If you're listening, God, please don't make it hard to know if we should believe the things that we see. Should we run away? Should we try and stay, or would it be better just to let things be? Living here in this brand new world is like a fantasy, but it taught me to love, so it's real to me. And I know that we must look inside our hearts to find a world full of love, like yours, like mine, like home. Awesome. I love that. And then on the Stephanie Mills, Diana Ross debate, I actually don't pick a side because Whitney sang it on a night show, so I prefer Whitney's version. Ooh, of course. So you won't see me again till the very end. I'm going to take this moment to celebrate and elevate the students, the current Albion College students who are going to join us introducing those who came before them. You will come in this order. So I'm not going to come up again. You will come in this order. Esmeralda Trevino, Cesar Ramirez, Kimberly Strozier. 3 students will introduce Kirby. Is that what I'm doing, Kathleen? Okay. Hallie Valentine, Melina Solis, and Brooklyn Tripp. And then Melanie Faust. You will come in that order. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Esmeralda. Awesome. Thank y'all so much for coming.
Hello everyone, my name is Esmeralda Trevino. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I chose Albion because of the faculty and staff. I'll be graduating next May and in a degree in psychology. And I'm happy to introduce Dr. Coletta Thomas, newly retired this summer. Dr. Thomas spent the past 14 years with Common Ground Sanctuary, a behavioral health agency focused on youth and families in crisis. Dr. Thomas taught for 25 years in various venues, earned her own doctorates in psychology and clinical and humanistic psychology. Dr. Thomas has served on Albion's Board of Trustees, headed the Alumni Board, established the Black Alumni Chapter Facebook page, and served as an admission volunteer and has been active with capital campaigns and a presidential search. So much. So I'm happy to introduce Dr. Coletta Thomas.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I looked behind me and I was surprised because I wasn't paying attention. Suddenly there was a room full of people. I have been asked to talk about my journey to becoming a clinical psychologist. And one of my girlfriends said to make sure to talk about how they influenced me into becoming a clinical psychologist. And several of them are in the audience. And yes, there was a need. After being with them, I could clearly see that there was a need for help. So I wasn't going to bring that up, but since she asked me to, it's not. Ironically, in an indirect way, I think that to some degree, what she's saying is accurate. Because one of the things that happened when I was here at Albion is that for some reason, especially my junior and senior years, the women seemed to select me as the go-to guru or something when they had problems. And there would be someone knocking on my door for advice. And we would sit down and have a talk. A lot of times it was just about hanging on in the collegiate atmosphere, you know, trying to make things work so that you could stay here and get your degree. It worked out well. The path to my clinical psychology degree was indirect, to say the least. I started out my career as an editorial assistant of all things. I had an English major. Didn't think too much about teaching because I really don't like kids. And I became an editorial assistant and it was boring. It was boring me to death. And I realized that I needed some people contact. So I had an opportunity to work as a teacher at a private business school, and I did that, fell in love with it. Everybody was college age, adults, and that worked out well for a while. I did that for a number of years, got my master's degree in adult and continuing education, and I was teaching in that area. And then the government decided to switch the funding from adult ed to K through 12, where it technically belonged anyway. And I could see that that path wasn't going to last, and I needed to prepare to do something else. My son, who graduated in 2001 from here with a psychology degree, was working on his master's, and I thought, well, if I become a psychologist, I can make my own hours, I can work as little or as much as I want to, I can talk to people, and I can help people. And teaching had taught me very much that you end up doing a lot of that anyway, because when you're teaching and you're dealing with people who have situational factors going on in their lives that affect how well they can perform in school, you have to do that. I didn't know when I was working in teaching that my master's thesis would be on, I think the topic was using behavioral modifiers to mitigate anxiety and math anxiety, or something like that was the title. But basically, I drew a coupon of myself. It was worth 5 points. It was a caricature of me. And if you went to the board to solve a problem, you got the coupon. And those 5 points could help you if you got a low score. You couldn't pass on coupons, but it would help you if you got a low test score. And what I found is that it helped people it encouraged them to go to the board, and it helped to conquer some of that math anxiety. If you want to be rich, discover a pill that will resolve math anxiety, and you will be rich, because there are a lot of people that have math anxiety. So anyway, from there, I decided to go back, do undergraduate work in psychology because I had none. All of my classes were in English and art here, and then in education at Wayne. So I did 30 hours of undergrad, and I recall when I was sitting there briefly, one time I did think about psychology here at Albion. I went to the animal lab with a friend of mine, Leonard Brockram, and I thought about psychology for a hot minute, but there were rats in the animal lab. And I don't do rats. And when I went to Wayne, that was a big concern of mine because you still have to do a lab usually. But Wayne offered the opportunity, you could take an extra math class or you could do lab. And as poor as I was in math, I jumped at the chance not to have to deal with the lab. So I got through that. I applied at Wayne. I was just telling my student that I applied at Wayne into their psychology department. And just before I got accepted at Wayne, I decided that I really wanted to go more the clinical route. Wayne is mostly research and research oriented. And so I switched and I went to the Michigan Professional School of Psychology and did a lot of clinical work there. It was a wonderful education, a wonderful experience. The degree was in clinical and humanistic psychology. The humanistic part always is interesting to me because my personality is kind of that of a Klingon, and humanistic psychology is totally the opposite. And so it gives you pause and things you have to think about. I made it through the program, so I must be a successful humanist. And I went on to, one of the things that I did was, in order to get some actual experience with working in an environment with crisis, I volunteered at Common Ground Sanctuary. I volunteered 1 day a week, and the sanctuary is Common Ground's runaway shelter for at-risk youth. Fell in love with it, and there are kids there. Adolescent kids. For some reason, the kids gravitated towards me. They listened to what I had to say. When they're not listening to anything else, I managed to get through them. My program was a 3-week residential program, and they had counseling, a daily session every day. And sometimes they wouldn't talk. And in my office, I had a love seat and a chair, a desk chair, and another chair. And I would sit in the chair, and if they weren't talking, I made them switch places. And so then I just stretched out on the couch and closed my eyes. I said, now when you get ready to talk, let me know. So sometimes we did that for a couple of times before they said, there's something wrong with this woman, and they finally started talking. But if I have to wait on you, you're not going to say anything. We're going to hold that space, and I'm going to wait, but I'm going to wait with my eyes closed until you decide to say something. I worked there for a while. I don't know how many. I think I worked there for about 4.5 years. And there was an opportunity to move to the Crisis Center. The Crisis Center at Common Ground is the unit where people in the community come when they have mental health or substance abuse crises and issues. We get a lot of people who are suicidal. Common Ground also has a crisis line and a lot of other programs that all facilitate people dealing with mental health issues. And when I got to the screening unit, which we call OASIS, it's an acronym, the first 6 weeks I thought every day, I don't know if I'm going to come back to work. I don't know if I'm going to stay here. Because the job was intense. I was a supervisory position, and that was intense, learning the ropes and trying to figure out what to do, and wrangling people who don't want to work, and wrangling people who don't want to be supervised, who have been doing wild things like bringing their hot plate in and cooking breakfast at work. And I'm like, no, we're not cooking breakfast at work. We're working at work, So, I was a supervisor that they wanted to get rid of. They didn't. So that was the most interesting part of my career. And what we did was we met with people who came in from the community, some of them in very dire straits. The process for most of the people that we saw is that they were presented at an emergency room in the area. with psychological distress or something situational going on, they would be evaluated by a social worker in the hospital, and then a doctor would see them. If the social worker felt like they were at risk of harm, seriously depressed, no insight, the legal road in Michigan is that she would write a petition. And then she presents that petition along with the results of her examination to a doctor in the medical department, in the emergency department. They write a cert. Legally in Michigan, those two pieces of paper together allow us to hold a person for 72 hours until a psychiatrist can meet with them. That was our role, So we held the people until we found a hospital bed for them where they could meet with a psychiatrist. And in that process of holding, we met and dealt with everything. People who were violent, people who were suicidal. We had a children's unit adjacent to the adult unit. We dealt with a lot of family and situational issues. But as challenging as it was, because there were times when it got quite violent. And if you're on the unit, you have to step in and intervene. There are times when, we call the ambulance to take the person, and the person refuses to get on the gurney. Now we got a situation. We tried to avoid calling the sheriffs in. They were across the road from us because the sheriff's department is criminally based. But the people that we were dealing with had issues, health issues, medical issues, and were not criminals. Well, they might have been criminals in another life, but that's not what they were there for at the moment. We didn't care about that. All we cared about was their psychiatric health at the time. And so it can be quite dangerous. But despite that, there's a team, there's a system, we work together, and we managed to deal with people who needed the help. And I think the greatest reward was when you see people saying thank you. But the greatest heartbreak is also when you have someone who knows that they have a mental disorder, doesn't want to have a mental disorder, and is just heartbroken about it. I had a woman crying, sobbing in my arms. She's saying, I just don't want to be crazy, And she was very resistant to being there with us. And I'm trying to explain to her that if you want to keep your power, you have to take this medication. And you have to stay on this medication. When you get off the medication because you think you're well, that's the medication that made you feel that way. And when you get off the medication and you go back to this, then you come back to this circle, this cycle, where you have to come back and deal with us. And it was heartbreaking for a lot of people. But for the majority of people that we saw, and we saw a lot of repeat individuals because the resources are limited. It's emergency community mental health services for imminent risk, which means long-term focus is not there. There's no money for it. Hospitalization is very brief. We authorize 3 days to start. Now, that doesn't mean that they got out in 3 days. It means that we authorize 3 days. If the psychiatrist on the unit felt that they weren't ready to leave, they could stay longer until they were discharged. But sometimes we send somebody and they might stay 2 days. Well, in 2 days, whatever situational factor that caused them to have that episode might have relented, but their essential problems were still at the source. They were still there, and their needs still unmet. So there's a gap in the system in terms of meeting people's needs. I think one thing that COVID has taught us is that we're very social beings, and we have to have that association with each other in order to be whole and to be healthy. I think most people will admit for that time when they had no contact with people, there were times when they were very, very, maybe not depressed, but sad, tired of being by themselves, and it takes a toll, One of the things that we saw is that our hospitalization rate increased overall for individuals. Our suicide rates, unfortunately, did go up. We hospitalized more children than we ever have before. I think children suffered the most. I recently retired in July, and I wanted to do other things. I have other things that I need to do before I get to the point where I'm unable to do them. I have a book that I need to finish writing and some other things that are on the back burner, but and community mental health is very intense, so you shouldn't stay too long. You need to leave before you get to burnout. And COVID and the lack of staffing was taking a huge toll on us not being able to meet our goals. sometimes. Excellent teams fighting as hard as they can, but the bottom line is that it's mental health is like a wave, it's like the tide, you know. So you're gonna have people come in all the time, and we can't always meet that need, but we try. I think it's a very good agency, you know, Common Ground where I work, and that people could, and it's improving. They're getting more and more funding for different kinds of programs. So that's a place, it's a resource that people should utilize if they happen to be in Oakland County. I could go on forever, but I got the high sign from my friend, and my time is just gonna run out. So I wanna, do we do questions and answers now? Or
We'll do that at the end when we have.
do it all at the end? Okay, all right. So I'm gonna stop. And if you have questions, I'll be.
Thank you, Dr. Coletta Johnson, for speaking about your journey and your clinical experience as a clinical psychologist. Hello, my name is Cesar Ramirez, and I chose Albion College because the opportunities that the school offers to the students and the closed, small classroom environment. I'm part of the class of 2023, and I'm gonna get a communications degree. And then I'm honored to introduce Caryn Ryan. Caryn Ryan's executive background includes service as Chief Financial Officer for World Vision International, overseeing microfinance and financial operations in more than 80 countries. And in a 20-year stint with Amico and BP, Caryn held CFO, Vice President, and finance positions, working in Houston, Chicago, London, and Moscow. After her career at Amico and BP, Caryn founded Missionwell LLC. She applies her business world expertise to the service of Southern California religious and nonprofit organizations, providing top-tier human resource and financial advice and services.
It's so nice to be here. It's such a pleasure to be with all of you today. So I wanted to actually talk to you a little bit. I have a question that I want to kind of throw out there for you. And here's the question: does happiness matter? And that's a question that maybe we don't ask all the time, but philosophers have pondered that question since the days of the ancients, Socrates, etc. And I think it matters. I think happiness really matters, and believe that your personal happiness increases, and as it increases, that you become more interested in other people, and that through that genuine interest in other people, you become kinder and more generous yourself, and you start to act in ways that leave the world a better place. And if that's true, then there's a real virtuous cycle at work. Improve your personal happiness, and it enables improvements in society and in civilization. And today, I'd like to ultimately share just a few simple recipes for improving happiness with you. Before we go there, though, we have to start by agreeing on what happiness means. So there's a dictionary definition: feeling or showing pleasure or contentment, but that's not very nuanced. And I talked to my 30-something kids with this question, what differentiates people who are happy from people who are not happy? And I was just absolutely surprised by their answer. Their answer was, happiness is curated now, Mom. It's a projection of happiness that matters on your Facebook and on your Instagram pages. And there are even experts that specialize in helping you project the right persona on your social media pages. And my kids say that it can be hard to get behind that facade. The genuineness can be missing there. Is expressed happiness actually genuine or not? And even with close friends, they say, it's really hard in this generation to know if someone's happy. People in their generation are used to masking. And in this talk, we're not concerned with what your Facebook or your Instagram accounts indicate. Let's take the mask off, unless they're for COVID prevention, in which case I am. So happiness, as the term is commonly used, refers to a positive and mental and emotional states But the engine of happiness is satisfaction with your life. So it's kind of, one can be transitory, one's a little bit more long-term and out there. So do you feel like you're flourishing? Have you discovered? And are you living out your purpose? And do you experience a general sense of well-being? Do you feel blessed? So if you are experiencing all those things, then chances are, even as really bad things happen to you, your batteries can get recharged. You're able to just pop back. You can live the life. I feel like I should be giving, you should be giving this talk, by the way. And by the way, I should also mention rats, yes. Albion College psychology major, yes. Yep, been there, done that. But that kind of life satisfaction is what recharges you and brings you back to a happy state, despite anything that goes wrong in your life. So over the ages, happiness has been looked at by many experts in many fields. And as liberal arts students, I know you're going to love this, but ethicists look at the value of happiness of one versus the value of happiness for many. Psychologists look at the relationship of happiness to the satisfaction of human needs and motivations. And according to Maslow's hierarchy, we're motivated to fill any physical and psychological deficiencies that we feel before we can self-actualize. But realizing our full potential and living life fully, that's happiness, isn't it? That is happiness. So, psychologists, I think, got some good answers there. And social scientists look at the connection of happiness to social cultural factors. There's a theory that human empowerment and self-realization advance as personal freedoms rise. And a recent study shows that communities who on average score higher in Maslow's hierarchy go for models of community policing. And communities that are lower in Maslow's hierarchy and worried about their physical safety and security, they have models of traditional policing. So, this theory of happiness it's really important to, our social well-being as well. And from the field of political science, there's a think tank that's actually studying whether there's a correlation of personal growth of people with the right to exercise freedom within a political system. So do real democracies actually produce people who self-actualize more? I think the answer is yes. I've lived in Moscow and I've lived in various places. I think the answer is yes. So far, just with those examples, we can see that having a strong connection with our needs and having those needs met at every level allows us in turn to maybe turn around and focus then on others. It's kind of allows us to go out and focus on others. And when we focus on others, then that improves the communities that we relate to, both large and small. I also wanted to take a quick look, because I thought it was kind of interesting, at some of religious perspectives on happiness. So, one concept from religious people who are both theologians and religious practitioners is that, people's journey in this world and in this life is not the point. It's the journey toward something in the next life. So it's nirvana if you're a Buddhist, it's heaven if you're a Christian. If you're a Muslim, it might be the seven heavens. So, but we're here to move to something beyond. Another concept that comes from religion, and which I think is very appropriate as we think about happiness, is that there's obeying the commandments of your faith and the personal disciplines that those bring about instilled in you. That's really important. It brings you, in a religious sense, closer to God, and that can bring happiness. You can think of the mitzvahs in Judaism, for instance, there. But it's also important because there's this notion that comes out of disciplines, right? Life disciplines are what brings happiness. Happiness isn't just manufactured, it doesn't drop on you, right? You've got to practice it. You've got to try for happiness. It's a goal. So I think that religion brings some important dimensions to our thinking about happiness. I practice Christianity, which encourages, from the Bible, our holy book, laying down your burdens and letting God carry them. In the Bible, God says, my yoke is easy, my burden is light, and come to me and I'll give you rest. And we can put our trust in God to see us through. And though we're undeserving, we get His grace and we get His mercy. And if we put our faith into action, we extend that grace and mercy to everybody who we touch. And by touching those people, then we are actually changing the lives of others, whether they're part of your faith or not. They're being changed too. So I hadn't really thought about this until actually the pandemic, this idea of happiness and the connection to the advancement of civilization and also the impact of happiness in terms of living in a community. But it makes sense, right? It makes sense. You know, the welfare of others rises on our agenda as our needs are met and as we are happier. So I want to come back for a minute now to the question I asked my kids. What distinguishes happy people from unhappy people? And I asked a few close friends the same question, and I picked my close friends who have suffered greatly in their lives. Those are the friends I chose to kind of help with this question. Some of them have crippling life events, living with uncurable cancer and knowing that you're going to be dying soon. Loss of life partners, reaching the bottom with alcoholism. They've all experienced and gone through these. But they're, you know, and I can separate, you know, from some of my friends. So those who are depressed, often depressed and unhappy, and those who return rapidly to a happier state. Now, I clicked that one button. Okay.
You go ahead.
All right, so he's going to put a slide up here, but I'll just keep talking. So these are not, the people I've talked to, all of them have experienced really, really, really bad things in their lives. But let's look at what distinguishes them. So people who stay in that depressed state, who are unhappy, the opinions of others matter a lot to them. Whereas those who return to a happier state think, well, everybody has a right to their own opinion, but I'm just going to be true to my own opinions and my own thoughts. It's genuineness, you know, their thinking. And that, you know, good fortune, if you're sad and depressed, a lot of times they think good fortune is kind of hit or miss. Life is done to you. Whereas those who return rapidly to a happier state feel like good fortune's more controllable. It's something that you can work on. People who make comparisons to others and those comparisons lead them to feel less or like others are better off than they are, that's associated with depression and sadness. Whereas people who are in a happier state tend to compare themselves to history or trends, and it shows their relative well-being. Again, the sad people will focus on more uncontrollable events, while happier people will focus on self-care. Sad people will focus on self, and happier people will intentionally focus away from themselves and take the attention off their own issues. There's a feeling that attaining money and stuff will increase happiness with sadder people, and the happier people, so money can't buy happiness. And in fact, what makes me happy is to give my money away. So sometimes people who are really sad and depressed can't see choices and options in their life, and others who are happier take steps towards what they hope will make their life better, even just a little tiny, tiny baby step. They'll step forward into something and move forward. There's this difference too between accepting past personal failures or forgiving yourself for the choices that you've made that didn't work out and moving on to whatever is next. That's an important difference. Intellectualizing your sadness versus feeling your sadness. It's different when you feel your sadness. You acknowledge it and it kind of enables you to move on. And going back to the past and getting stuck in a rut versus living in the moment with an eye toward the future. Setting goals for yourself. Knowing what you want is a desired state. And also this idea of facts. You know, facts are our friends. Happy people think that way. Unhappy people a lot of times feel like, let's not gather the data. We don't need it. You know, I don't need that. So that's my story. My story is living in column 1 here. Okay, I lived in column 1 for a huge piece of my life. And this talk, I kind of entitled it, having the halftime of your life. Because halfway through my life, in my 40s, I kind of just went, oh, okay, this isn't good. This really isn't good. I was so depressed, I couldn't make decisions. I felt like I was being moved around like a puppet. My job was kind of soulless. You know, here I was a big CFO of a big corporation. I was like, what is this? All I do is worry about the profit from this quarter to the next quarter. That's my biggest worry in life. But I was confused about that, because I'm like, well, I'm living the dream life, right? I'm living in London. I live in this cool place. I have a cool salary. Everything's so cool. And people call my family, like, now this is a reference you may not get, but like, we were the Waltons. Anybody get that? Yeah. Okay, some of you do. Okay, so, that's what my family was called. Talk about, not being genuine. and not being true. Here I am on my antidepressants, you know, not doing well, really suffering and feeling, and yet, you know, hiding, getting promoted, etc. So I have another friend, and this is how he describes his experience, and he's a column 1 guy too. People have a natural set point for buoyancy, he says. Some are set higher and others are set lower. It's chemistry, it's constitutional, and it's not something you have control over. You can intervene chemically, you can get physical exercise, but you can't change your natural point. Life experiences left me with feelings of being worthless. Some people are susceptible and have family histories of depression, and I have a low, buoyant nature. I haven't been very good at working on it. Getting involved with things help. It's hard to take the steps. Engaging with the world is important, and sitting alone and being isolated is bad. So see, there's this intellectual knowledge, right? It's kind of some of these things in column 1, but you know, the struggle is how to get over there. For me, you know, finding my faith and wise spiritual advisors really helped. But you know, I do regret that it took me until the halftime of my life to start thinking about these things. And that's one of the points of my talk. Don't wait for the halftime of your life, okay? Today I love my work mostly. I make very little money, and I give quite a bit of what I do earn away, and I'm good with that. It's like, it all feels good to me, you know? My work feels meaningful. I support nonprofits and religious organizations, and I really like it. I work with wonderful people at my company. My staff is just amazing. They're just amazing people. I just couldn't work with better people. And I work with wonderful charities and churches too, and I sit on the boards of nonprofits and love doing that too. Life is good. So what I've learned though has been echoed by some of those friends I talked about who suffered these terrible, terrible life events. And I wanted to just share a couple of their voices with you. So here's the voice of a friend who suffered alcoholism, near homelessness, job instability, and much more that I won't get into. So here's his story. He says, at my current age of 59, I could feel tremendous despair, but I love my life and family. Money is an issue. A lot of my financial security rides on a startup corporation with a high probability of failure, and I didn't have a big bank account to start with. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, it's the hardest moment. Self-doubt creeps in again when I'm tired or sick and I think about the challenges or problems. Then something clicks, and I remember how truly grateful I am and how fortunate I am right now. I have the unique privilege to work on alleviating human suffering at the most basic level, and I'm also working on solutions for one of the largest climate changes problems on the planet. I focus on what I'm grateful for rather than ruminating on the bad things, and happiness and contentment follow. There's an awareness of my good fortune. I look around and see many who have more than I do, money in the bank, etc. But in the context of human history, I sit in a position of extraordinary privilege, comparatively. How can I feel anything but appreciation and gratitude? I get paid to use my mind, to write, and to mobilize people for good. I love that last sentence. You know, he knows what he's passionate about. He knows what he's good at, and he's engaging in that routinely. And he just trusts that everything will come to him if he does that. With all that time we spend at work, that's really critical. So that's, you know, point 2 here. You've got to, number 1, you've got to practice gratitude. That's point 1. And number 2, you've got to engage in what excites you and excites your passions and really truly motivates you positively. And if you're not spending your time doing things that motivate you, whether it's a class you're in, going to school here, or the jobs that you're going to have for the next 50 years of your life before we all get to retire, then you need to leave that situation and go for a job or go for a situation that is the potential to help you feel happy. A third point is to get out of your own head for a while. Get out there in the world. The same friend who suffered from this, all these issues has this to say about that. I feel very grateful, but not at every moment. The last few weeks have been very trying. But here's the thing. The more I focus on others, the happier and more content I am. The more I focus on myself, the more moody I become and anxious. I now try consciously to do things for other people. My wife, my daughter, or a person on the street. It's a reorientation and reminds me what it's all about. I get out of my own selfish head. That's the elixir and changes everything. It's easy to forget, and you have to remind yourself over and over. He's a pretty smart guy. A fourth point to just keep in mind is that what works at one point in your life might not work the next time something hits you. You know, we never swim in the same river twice, basically. So, you know, your response to something bad that happens might have to morph too. Be attuned to your moods and your happiness levels. Here's what another friend said. As you age, you put more thought into life's meaning rather than reaping the benefits of a good job and a good romance. I struggled to find what was important to me, not just from my faith, but what's going to make a difference long term from being on the earth. For me, that includes coming up with philosophies of life that you put into practice so it then guides how you react. I'm less impulsive and more intentional. I start my sentences with, I will, and then I do it. I see myself as giving more grace and applying morals more on how I live as I get older. I think that's a beautiful story. So the goal here is to make that half time of your life happen at a quarter time of your life, or even better, at all times. And you, most of you who are, you know, 20-ish, right? Plus or minus something, a lot of you are around that age. It's hard to think about it, but you're already approaching your quarter of your life, right? So, you know, don't wait till the halftime. Go for it. I want to close with a little story that my son told me about one of his friends. So my son's 35, so this guy's 35, and this is a story from about 10 years ago. He says, I have a friend, a quarter of his life, quarter life, there you go. I have a friend who took 8 years, including 3 years off work, at substantial financial hardship to figure out his emotional baggage. By the way, baggage wasn't the word my son actually used, but we're being watching. It was a big gamble, but it paid off. He is good and feels contentment and well-grounded. And I said, well, how did he do it? And he said, he did therapy, but mainly he just stopped these behaviors that prevented him from being happy. He figured out that work was a real source of dissatisfaction for him, and he quit his job, and he addressed it, and then he went on, he found another job, and just, he worked it. He just worked it until he got happy. So the pandemic has been a reminder to me, live fully, live every minute, and to be grateful for all who went before me, making the world a better place, and to commit to stepping out into a world that feels very uncertain at times, but with the certainty that as I do so, that my life and the life of those who I touch will be happier. So I'm wishing you half times of your life all the time, and thank you very much.
So much, Caryn. That was really great. Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Strozier. I'm from Troy, Michigan, and I chose Alumni College because I thought a small liberal arts college would be absolutely perfect for me to flourish and do everything that I wanted to do. I'm planning on graduating in 2023 with a degree in anthropology and sociology. I am so honored to introduce Shea Gardner today with her husband Rich. Shea co-founded Maroon Village, a unique nonprofit organization designed to help student athletes who are often navigating extreme and challenging circumstances. In addition, as a yoga instructor, Shea has worked with trauma survivors both in person and via her YouTube channel. Her background includes more than 18 years of supporting nonprofit youth programming and instruction. So, a big round of applause for Shea.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. All right, so I'm the halfway mark. I'm a little nervous. This is my first long presentation or talk, so thank you for letting me challenge myself in front of you. I am a yoga instructor and a meditation instructor, and we do breath work, so to calm my anxiety. And then to also, give yourselves a little bit of movement because you haven't seen here for a little while. I would love if you would take 3 breaths with me, and I'll guide you through that. So yeah, I see people already adjusting in their seats. Go ahead and sit up nice and tall. Let your spine lengthen. And then when you're ready, take a nice inhale. And then exhale, shoulders down. Again, inhale. And then exhale. All right, last one. Inhale. And exhale. Awesome. I think it's quite fitting that I'm following up behind both Dr. Coletta and I cannot remember the name of Dr. Caryn, yes. Because my talk is called Healing Through Helping Others, and this is really about, I'm getting emotional, about my journey to even be here. Okay, here we go. So first I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more. I am a mother. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my husband and my parents are here. And I work with trauma survivors. I'm a survivor myself, which I'll get into. And through our nonprofit, we work with student athletes. I played soccer here at Albion College, which I'm extremely proud of. So here we go, let's get into it. To be honest, I didn't really want to attend Albion College when the opportunity presented itself. And to be really honest, I actually dropped out of Albion my senior year, spring semester, and had no plans on graduating. There was a lot going on in my personal life at the time, and I just didn't have the capacity to care about college anymore. And we'll get to that later. I had heard of Albion a lot growing up, actually, since it's basically right down the street from my hometown of Jackson, Michigan. A few of my friends' parents had gone here, and a few close family friends, too. I even met the soccer coach my senior year of high school when she came to lead us through practice. Albion had a great reputation, and still does, but you couldn't have given me a full ride to attend this tiny college with a population of students smaller than my high school. Not to mention, it's less than a 20-minute drive from my home, depending on your speed. And I didn't want to be so close to home. So how did I end up at Albion? Well, let's start at my high school senior soccer season. I'd been scouted to play Division II at Hillsdale College, on scholarship, which is also not much further down the backcountry roads from here. And without warning, after my first season, going from bench warmer to starting lineup, the administration dropped our program, the women's soccer program, the men's soccer program, and a couple other due to funding. And I was devastated, to say the least. But that fateful New Year's Day morning in 2003, when I opened that unexpected letter from Hillsdale, my destiny would be sealed. I will never forget my parents coming into my room, waking me up with the news as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes. I immediately popped up, still in bed, and asked my parents if they thought I could transfer to Albion, and most importantly, keep playing soccer. I had the confidence I could walk on to a Division III school, and maybe they would still offer me that academic scholarship. Because even though I wasn't interested in Albion, my parents had convinced me to apply to well-known schools where I thought I could play soccer and also earn a meaningful degree. My parents and I got to work right away by calling Albion. Before spring semester started, I was checking off the box for a random roommate and packing my things to move those 20 minutes away from home. I met my randomly assigned roommate, and it turns out she wasn't so random. She was my longtime friend and soccer club teammate since 4th grade. To me, this was a sign I was meant to be at Albion, and it was also confirmation that Albion was really small. So when I transferred to Albion as a student athlete, I decided to stick with my studies in sociology for 2 simple reasons. Number 1, math anxiety. Statistics was the only math class I had to take for that degree. Math is not my favorite subject. Sorry, mathletes. Sorry, Dad. And 2, because of my true love for studying society. I have always been a people watcher, so sorry if you see me staring, it's what I do. And going through what I went through as a kid, I wanted to learn more about how our environments can and very much so do impact our human experience. I could stand here and talk your ears off about how soccer saved my life during some very stressful college years. But I think true credit goes to my entire experience at Albion, including my professors, the classes they offered, and maybe most importantly, the conversations they had with me about real life after Albion College. The summer after my first semester at Albion, I was hired on by Coach Polnasic to be a counselor for the National Youth Sports Program on campus. This was a not-for-profit day camp where local Albion youth would come to campus and we would teach them sports. So sports from golf to tennis, swimming, hiking, canoeing. These kids had a blast, and so did I. While this experience wasn't my first time working with youth, I had some experience nannying and tutoring in high school. This was my first taste in the nonprofit world, and I ate it all up. I continued to work as an NYSP counselor during my Albion College summers, gaining more confidence and clarity in my purpose. I remember my life's plan for the next few years coming together when I sat down with the late and great Dr. Len Berkey in his office for one of my routine advisory meetings my senior year. He was asking me about classes and my interests per usual. I was able to share with him my positive experience with NYSP and working with youth. Len shared with me the possibility of joining City Year, an AmeriCorps program that works with youth in 29 cities across the U.S. Now, what I wasn't able to share with him was the very real difficulties I was dealing with in my personal life during that time. I promise we'll get to that soon. I searched the internet, finding out all I could about City Year, and I was sold. I immediately applied to the Chicago location because I wanted to be in a big city close enough to home, but far, far away. I vividly remember sitting outside my dorm room at White House, pacing back and forth in the brisk cold of early spring, answering my interview questions with all my might. I needed to get out. You see, no one at Albion really knew what I was dealing with at that time. Between studies and soccer, I was also barely surviving. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, among surviving many other traumas along the way. I faced this abuse for 7 years, starting at age 6. It might be helpful to understand what trauma is and what it does to our bodies. A favorite definition of mine that I have found, and I feel like I've kind of compiled it together, maybe from 2, but it explains trauma as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that overwhelms our capacity to cope. And if we don't cope, if we don't tend to the wound, we're still wounded. And what gets swept under the rug, it's still there. So trauma stores in the body. And as we are learning more and more, it then manifests in ways that truly affect our human experience. It bleeds into our relationships, whether we want to admit it or not. And it can even be found to manifest as dis-ease. So showing up in the body as autoimmune disease, chronic illness, chronic pain, and more. So at age 21, I was barely hanging on by a thread. The only thing holding my head up from drowning away my sorrows in alcohol and sex and many other high-risk behaviors typically seen with trauma survivors was the mere potential of moving to Chicago. The last 2 years of my life at that point, I had been quietly trying to press charges on one of my abusers in the state of Michigan in hopes of stopping him from harming others. But the state prosecutor at that time said there wasn't enough evidence for my case to move forward. So complete and utter devastation, humiliation, all that truth-telling, and for what is basically how I felt. And then I was expected to go play soccer and study and finish out my college degree. My silent suffering drove me to quit soccer my senior season, the one thing that I loved most in life. I pretty much stopped going to classes. I failed a couple and then ultimately dropped out of school my spring of my senior year. But only after I received that life-changing phone call from City Year, congratulating me on my acceptance into the program. So I had a plan. My dad helped me move out of my dorm room, and as a parent myself now, I can only imagine what you were thinking. But I know what was going through my mind, and that was freedom and a fresh start. For my first 2 years in Chicago were spent working as a corps member for City Year. I worked and lived on the west side in North Lawndale, tutoring elementary students in reading, running an after-school program, mentoring teens in community service, and I also led a team of peers as we put together civic engagement programming for 200 middle school students from all over Chicago. Needless to say, I could write a whole book on my experience those 2 years with City Year, but for the purposes of this talk, I'll share what my main takeaway was from that experience, and that was that I wanted to run my own nonprofit eventually. I knew I needed more understanding and experience to run a nonprofit, things like how to fundraise and manage a budget. So over the next several years, I dedicated myself to my career, all while still engaging in behaviors and relationships that were not the best for me and where I wanted to go in life. If you were to look at my resume, you would never know that I was still dying inside. Well, at least I felt like it. My love life reflected how I felt about myself: abusive, toxic, undeserving of anything good. But one day I had had enough, and I remember this very vividly. I was looking in the bathroom mirror of my tiny apartment that I shared with my abusive boyfriend at the time, and found myself looking in the mirror and not recognizing who I was, and saying out loud, like, what are you doing? You know, like, who are you? What are you doing? So somehow, somewhere, I found the courage, scared and brave at the same time, to kick him out, move to a safer space, and again, start all over. It was then that I decided to reach out to Albion, and thank goodness for Troy Case, who helped me figure out exactly what I needed to do to finish up my degree. During this time, I met my now husband, Rich, and partner in nonprofit at the boxing gym, where he taught me more than just how to train. We fell in love. I graduated from Albion and went on to get pregnant and soon after married. And it was during our first months together he shared with me his vision of starting a nonprofit for student athletes as a retired NFL athlete himself. I think that was when I knew I was truly in love. It was also then that I had the idea of helping him build out his nonprofit from the ground up. So when we finally began slowly working out the details of what it takes to run a nonprofit, I found out I was pregnant again. And then after our daughter was born, I was hit with postpartum depression like a ton of bricks. So while on maternity leave with 2 kids under 2, I found myself completely activated by memories of my past and wanted to run away from it all, drown it all out with those high-risk behaviors. My dear friend told me to try yoga for my depression, and with much hesitation, because I'm an athlete and I like to compete, I tried this slower moving activity and I was hooked. I didn't know exactly what was happening on that mat, but I realized I needed to get on that mat every single day for a year, and I did. Whether it was 5 minutes or 15, I gave myself grace as long as I showed up. As my first year of yoga started to turn into my second year, I came to another realization that not only should our nonprofit offer performance training for student athletes, but that we should include yoga in the curriculum. Now all we needed was a yoga teacher. So I did my research and asked my friends for advice, and eventually found a yoga teacher training that seemed to be everything that I wanted. I wanted to deepen my own understanding of this ancient healing practice and then share it with athletes who also might be interested in its benefits. The tools I was gaining for moments of anger, rage, depression, and anxiety were actually bringing me more ease and peace in my body, mind, and spirit. Surely there were student athletes out there like me who had been through some tough shit and needed it. Mm-hmm. Yoga may sometimes and in some places be offered as a workout, but the more you practice and the more you learn about the practice, you find it is not so much a workout, but rather a work in, opening the doors to your own healing and your own awareness of your own aliveness. I started deepening my meditation and breathing practices alongside the physical practice, and soon realized I needed to continue my studies. Soon after completing yoga teacher training, I became a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor, which means I teach trauma-sensitive yoga, like through a trauma-sensitive lens, whenever and wherever I am teaching. Currently, I'm in a 2-year mindfulness meditation teacher certification program, as well as a trauma-sensitive mindfulness program, learning all that I can about true mindfulness to bring back to the athletes, coaches, and teams that we serve. My husband, Rich, and I are embarking upon the end of our 4th year as Maroon Village, and it feels like everything is falling into place finally. From the state of Michigan picking my case against my abuser back up and a trial date set for the end of January, to Maroon Village gaining recognition and understanding of our mission. We have served a few hundred student athletes from Chicago to Jackson, Michigan through our programming, which aims to support building resilience on and off of the field through performance training and practices such as yoga, meditation, and breath work. Some of our students have gone on to receive full sports scholarships to college, and one is playing for U of I tomorrow against Rich's alma mater, Penn State, which is really cool. We are currently working with Calumet College of St. Joseph's in Northwest Indiana to build out a summer camp program very similar to the National Youth Sports Program model, thanks to a grant they've received, and we're hopeful that we'll launch that this summer. And then this past summer, we were personally invited by the Chicago Bulls to apply for a small grant. And Rich and I, this was our first grant that we wrote together, but through many tears and weeks and edits, we found out last month that we won the grant, so that's really exciting. So what brings this story, my journey, full circle and right back here to Albion is the fact that had it not been for Coach Polnasic, my advisor and sociology professor, Dr. Len Berkey, and other influential role models here like sociology and anthropology professor, Dr. Scott Meltzer, English professor, Dr. Judy Lockyer, and history professor, Dr. Marcy Sachs, who knows what path I would have gone down, or honestly, what ditch I would have ended up in. And another endeavor I'm excited to share with you all is our internship program. So Maroon Village is now partnered with Albion College, and we just finished our second year of an internship program where we work with Albion College students who all hail from Chicago. So kind of this like full circle 360, pathway, or however you want to word, whatever word you want to use for that. It's really cool. Our internship offers them a chance to learn the ins and outs of running a nonprofit alongside of us. It's just me and Rich and our interns. From social media marketing to Zoom meetings to grant writing and fundraising, which they helped with the Bulls grant this summer. These students are right on the front lines with us because it takes a village. Thankfully, so gratefully, I found a village here at Albion, a true sense of belonging. I am so proud to say I graduated from Albion. I am so proud to tell my story because of Albion. I learned so much during my time on campus, both times. It took me 6 years to come back after dropping out, but I did it, and I graduated, and I belong. So if you walk away from this time together today with one thing and one thing only, and I feel like Dr. Caryn just hit on this, happiness through helping others. Well, I'm saying for my story, know that your own healing is possible through helping others, which I think, it's right there with happiness. They go right hand in hand. So again, that's why I think it was cool I was presenting right after that. So thank you for being here today, listening to my story. Thank you to my parents and my husband for supporting me every day. And thank you to Kathleen Boshiers and Amy Everhart for all the work they've done to get me here behind the scenes. Troy Case for his patience and help when I wanted to come back. Every single one of my professors at Albion for their incredible insights into this crazy world. And President Johnson for his vision and the whole of Albion College for all their support and kindness. It takes a village. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that inspiring speech that you gave. Trust me, I was over there crying with you. My name is Holly Valentine. I am the class of 2024, also a sophomore. I am a business major, and I'm currently a student at Gearstacker. I chose Albion for the liberal arts education and for the freedom it gives me over my education. I'm going through a very unique career path, and Albion's right there along with me, hand by hand helping me.
Hello, my name is Milena Solis. I'm also part of the class of 2024, sophomore here at Albion. I am double majoring in business and psychology. I'm also a part of Gearstacker. and I'm on the women's golf team. I chose Albion because I just kind of named it all. It has like everything that I wanted, and being from Albion, born and raised here, I wanted to continue to give back to my community by being right there with them still. So we are here.
Today we are introducing Kirby. He is a former Ford student in his class of '85, and he is an innovator in the golf industry. With the creation of Golf My Future, My Game, he has paved the way for people to have access to not only the game of golf, but careers as well.
And we are pleased to stand up here as two interns from an internship he put together at Westfield Country Club down in Ohio. Westfield's interesting because it's not only a country club, it also is owned by an insurance company. So through that internship, we were able to learn business alongside golf and how those two play a part together.
Please help us in welcoming Kirby up to the stage.
Hey everybody, wake up. Where's my yoga? Shea, what do we do? How do we make everybody stand up?
Yeah, stand up.
All right, stand up, stand up. I am the fourth of 5 brilliant people, excluding me. All right, let me just say that. All right, y'all can sit down now. Homecoming 2021. We're here. You know, a term that has been used a little bit this afternoon is full circle. And I had a chance to have lunch with Melina and Holly and Brooklyn, and that term came into 3D. You know, every time you come to a campus, you always learn. And what I learned upstairs was the difference between DC and Marvel. They did this whiteboard. We talked about all the superheroes. I now have a much better understanding of what's DC and what's Marvel. I want to thank Kathleen, Bonciel, Amy, Everhart Perry, Dr. Coletta, Dr. Caryn, Shea, thanks. I mean, your stories, thank you so much. Yeah. August 1981, I stepped onto this campus as a first-year student. May 1985, I had the good fortune to leave as a graduate. And I'll tell you, it was one heck of a ride. Shea, I have to share a little story with you. It may have taken you 4 years. It took me 1.5 years before I thought I was going to flunk out of this baby. My father wrote me this be-all-you-could-be letter, and he said, you know, your current circumstances do not dictate the conversations we've had over the past few weeks. I don't know where you're going to go if you're no longer at Albion, but you ain't coming here. So, again, that was that be-all-you-could-be letter. You know, for the next few minutes, I'd like to highlight our new president, Dr. Matthew Johnson's theme for our college, which is purpose, action, and belonging. A purpose of Albion College is to teach students to read broadly and think critically. It is a frontier. It's a place where all learn the importance of enhancing, enriching, and empowering the community in which they live and those who live by and around them. I know this because I attended Albion College when differences were not emphasized, but perspectives were challenged. Perspectives for many that overcame uncertainty, indifference, and the impossible. And I use the word impossible because many thought it was impossible that a second semester freshman would run for student senate chair and win. And you know what my main campaign theme was? It was college community relations. I understood that both the college and the community needed each other. I understood the importance of sharing, and caring for each other. I can only share and say that I'm happy to see that my thoughts and my vision then are actually becoming a realization today. Action. There are 3 students over here who I'm going to ask to come back up. They took an action this past spring and summer, and they stepped out of their comfort zones, taking advantage of a lifetime experience with unparalleled possibilities. That being the golf industry's first careers in golf development internship, as Milena and Holly said, at Westfield Country Club. Holly Valentine, Brooklyn Tripp, and Melina Solis participated in a 3-month internship experience in golf operations and golf course management, again at the Westfield Country Club. It was an experience allowing them to recognize that change is inevitable, improvement is optional. Their action, Milena, Holly, and Brooklyn, realized that opportunity was being able to see past traditional barriers and having an intense belief in their ideals and their abilities, and being able to take advantage of all the opportunities that were presented to them each day. So again, I'd like for you 3 to come up, because I want you to hear from their mouths what they experienced, what they learned, and how they will take that into their life.
Hello again. So I'm Elena Solis. I actually played golf, and I've been playing golf since I was in 7th grade. But one thing that I've never been able to see at a golf course, especially in high school, I would show up at these golf tournaments with 120 girls, and I could count on 1 hand or 2 hands how many of them were people of color. And it's hard walking into a country club as a minority, as a female, already kind of like, you don't know the game, what are you doing here? And then to be a golfer, to be female, and I'm Mexican American, it's hard. But this internship allowed us to just like see it head on. We worked for them. I say them, it was us, like we worked there with them, and it was, yeah, I'll let them talk a little bit more about it. I was on grounds, yeah, it was with 40 guys. And yeah, no, none of them were people of color, so that gives you perspective on where we were at.
So hello again, I'm Holly. With Milena, I was also working grounds. I can say our first day, me and Milena walked in at 6 a.m. at the country club. Very confused and shocked, because as soon as we walked in, it's like maybe a room from that pillar to this pillar, just full of white middle-aged men. And they were just all sitting there, like some of them were talking, some of them weren't saying anything. A lot of them didn't have masks on when masks were still regulated, so we just walked in very confused. But it's put in this perspective is that never once have I ever felt uncomfortable in the present when I was in class. Every person there treated me with respect. The managers always had our backs, was advocating for us. To even the men there, they came out their way to get to know us and to really build a rapport with us, which is something that I hold very dear to my heart. And sometimes I find myself missing them. Some days I'm missing Kyle and Todd and everything, wishing sometimes maybe even shooting them a text. But what I really got from the internship was how important it is to really remove your bias before joining something and making sure taking it out is still doing something, even if you don't see yourself doing it. I don't see myself in a golf career, but me having the opportunity to do that internship really helped me, because it gives me the opportunity to maybe do a golf career if I feel the need to.
Hi, I'm Brooklyn Tripp. I also worked here this summer, but I was on the cart burn crew. And I've never played golf before, ever. I can't tell you the difference between a club or another. I can't give you any terminology at all. I just was there. I learned so many different things. I built a lot of different connections. Because I was not at grounds, I think I went once a week every Friday. But besides that, I spoke with members, and Westfield is also an insurance company. So they hosted insurance events, and if you're on Cart Barn, you set up for those insurance events. You met with different members every day. You built connections, you built relationships, and I'd say that I still speak with some of those connections. I still have some of those relationships. And although I was on the Cart Barn crew, I did work rounds, and I did feel that very welcoming group that Holly was talking about at grounds. However, Cart Barn did have a different feel to it. You had your members who were very, very excited that you were there, and then you had your members who weren't ready for change. And it was hard as a person of color, as a Black woman who never golfed before on a golf course. But it's some of the challenges that we face and that we have to face head on and just continue through it. And that aside, I do plan on returning to Westfield because it was really great. I would definitely do it again, honestly. And I think that we had those hardships wherever we go as people of color. So thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you all. I can't tell you how proud I am of these three women, these young ladies, our future, and also Kenneth Reynolds, who is a student at Howard University. And one of the reasons why I wanted to build the internship the way we built it is because an HBCU is so much more different than a PWI. And I wanted those HBCU students to understand what going to a PWI was like, and vice versa, the PWI students to understand an HBCU experience. And I remember when I was younger, I would talk to some of my friends who went to Howard or Alcorn State or Tuskegee, and they would talk about registration would be 3 and 4 days. And I'm like, 3 and 4 days? What the heck are y'all doing? You know, our registration was like 20 minutes. We were in and out. And I was almost out. Because it was, anyway, we had that story. But I also will have to share that these three women, young ladies, there is an industry of men and women who appreciate what they did. I was at the Memorial Tournament, Jack Nicklaus's tournament this summer. Now I stand in front of the clubhouse and the PGA Tour Commissioner, Jay Monahan, comes out. And he says, Craig, I just want to applaud you for what you're doing in this world of diversity. And I said, Mr. Commissioner, I applaud you all because you all are awakened now. And these three, plus Kenneth, is a great example of once you give somebody an opportunity and an option, and they make that choice, it can happen. And so the third piece I want to talk about is belonging. When we talked about purpose, we talked about action, and belonging. So in the end, it is belonging that survives through time and space. It is belonging that heals. It is belonging to family, to community, to Mother Nature, that ultimately makes us who we are, not just from birth to death, but for as long as there is time. And I'd like everyone here to remember that Albion College, we're a family. There may be differences and disputes in the family, but we must not allow the family to be broken into warring factions. From the diversity of our people, let us draw strength and not cause weakness. Let us continue to believe in Albion with all of our heart, our soul, and our mind. Because I'll tell you, it remains one of the most outstanding and best hopes in our country. Thank you.
We're going to take just a minute break so that Chad can set up our next PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to stand up, grab a water, we'll resume in 5 minutes yet?
We're going to start the program once again, and then afterwards we'll have time to network and grab food and things. So let's sit down and we'll start one more time.
Hello everyone, my name is Melanie Faust. I'm from Hillsville, Michigan, and I chose Albion because of its dedication to providing students with a liberal arts education. I will graduate in 2025 with a degree in biology, and I'm also credentialed. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Bonciel Griffin-Burress, who is the first African-American female to own a multi-office orthodontic and dental practice in the metropolitan Chicago area. In addition, Dr. Griffin-Burress mentors interns and dental assistant trainees. In 2012, Dr. Griffin-Burress was named one of WVON Chicago's 40 under 40 game changers. The Chicago native studied dentistry at the University of Michigan and earned an orthodontic specialty at Howard University's School of Dentistry. I'd like to introduce Dr. Griffin-Burress.
Everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for the invitation to come yet again and give another BritX Talk on behalf of the Wilson Institute. I'm better known as Bonnie on campus. I'm a 1997 graduate, bio major. So we'll start with where I invested 11 years of my life. First 4 here were at Albion. I too was reluctant to come to Albion College. I had my sights set on a big school, bunch of people, thinking about a party life until my mother said, no, you're going out. And also there was another incentive. I had happened to see a flyer that one of the recruiters had left in my high school that said that they would get us into dental school. And so my mom said, well, you did a program at Iowa State, you got C's, that's on the transcript, so Albion's gonna give you some money. It's 2 hours from home, you're going to Albion. So here at Albion, I was a bio major, came here and found out how extremely difficult it was to be a bio major. I graduated in the top 10% of my class in high school, but yet when I got here, it was a totally different game plan. And as a bio major, which I think is one of the hardest majors on campus, what am I doing? If it hadn't been for the strong desire to become a dentist, I probably would have changed majors. So the first 2 years of Albion, I struggled with biology. I got average grades, but you know, I'm like, I gotta keep chugging along. There is no. This is my only plan. I don't want to go to law school. I don't want to go to medical school. My mom told me I could not be a nurse. So this is the only thing that I was left with. After I got through Bio 205, I think that was my most traumatic class here at Albion, I really started to enjoy the upper level classes. And that's when I started to accelerate and my GPA went up. During that time, unbeknownst to me, in order to get into dental school, there was and I don't know if they still have this now, but they go through committee. And the committee, you know, looks at your grades as a whole and they make a recommendation. And I haven't shared this with anybody yet, but at the time, the committee did not recommend me for dental school. They said I wasn't even marginally competitive enough to even go to dental school. So that was a no that devastated me. However, I have a father, because they got the letter in the mail and said, don't you ever let anybody tell you no. So somebody says, well, why do you come back to Albion and, you know, you give money to the school? Well, had it not been for Albion, I would have never gone to the #1 dental school in the country, which is the University of Michigan. And this is a way where I tell you to say, don't take no. There's always alternate routes. One day I was walking into Olin Hall, see the University of Michigan. I back up. Start talking to this guy. Hey, from a family of dentists. I always, every summer and break, I go in and I dental assist. I can tell you more about an MOD, a DO, an occlusal amalgam, more than most first-year dental students can. And he says, oh my goodness, you need to come and do this summer program, which is called Profiles for Success. In Ann Arbor, where they come in and they pay you, and you take Kaplan, you write your essay, you do interviews. And so I said, okay, I know this is probably my one and only chance to rock this and get into this school, and I did it. Made such a great impression on them that they said, you know, looking at your transcripts, I think at that time you needed at least a 3.0 GPA. You know, but of course this is the #1 dental school. They're at 3.5, 3.6, 3.7, but Albion had weight because they knew how difficult the curriculum was. So I got that through the graciousness of Dr. Dan Skeen and Dr. Stephenson, wrote me good recommendations, and I was able to get into the University of Michigan. Did 4 years there, graduated, did a 1-year general practice residency at the University of Illinois, Chicago Dentistry, and then did another 2-year residency at the Mecca, as most African Americans like to call it, or the real HU, Howard University. Going back to Albion, this is one of my most enjoyable classes that I had with Dr. Ruth Smitter. It was our electron microscopy class. The reason I liked it is because it taught me several things. To work in small groups, to get to know people that I never probably wouldn't have gotten to meet, and also to pay attention to detail. In her class, even though we're looking through microscopes and we're blowing things up, you still had to label things correctly. You had to, photographs, we had to develop them, and you had to develop them in a sense that a correct order so that they would actually come out and show the images that you were actually taking photos in the microscope. And like I said, once you get to your higher level bio classes, I had so much fun, you know, it surprised me how well I did them. So my topic is basically navigating dental school and beyond. So this is everybody their first year of dental school. This guy right here. Because in dental school, unlike medical school, you have both your didactic, which is your coursework, your laboratory, which is what you do prior to getting into clinic and working on actual patients, and then afterwards, towards your your third and fourth year, you have to combine all of this with community service. So the biggest thing I would tell people going into dental school, medical school, is that you have never been bombarded in your life the way you're going to be bombarded when you get to either medical or dental school. At Albion, you know, you may take about 2 or 3 classes a day. Here at the University of Michigan, we were taking at least 7 to 8 classes. Then I say dental school is from 9 to 5 and then 7 to 2 because I would take a break between 5 and 7. Then you'd have to go into the school, study, cut teeth, go back and study, take a break, and then go back and cut teeth. Because if you can't cut the teeth properly, they're not going to let you on a patient, which makes sense. So it's a whirlwind, and you're like, oh my God, how are we going to do that? And the only way you can do this is through time management. And with this, you basically have to decide, you know, what goals are important to you. How are you going to prioritize a class over one over the other? Because the problem with dental school is that you'll have your first year all in one semester. We had biochemistry, histology, microbiology, and you're like, wait a minute, I was taking this course at Albion for one entire semester, and then the other one the next semester. How are you going to cram all of these courses in the matter of one semester and decide to get a decent grade? You also have to set time limits, because with those small classes like biomaterials or dental anatomy, you can't spend, you know, 2 or 3 hours on that and think you're going to study for 30 minutes for microbiology. So after a while, you have to decide what grade is weighted heavier than the other is how I'm going to manage my time in studying for these courses. You have to take breaks, else you will lose your mind. Yoga is a good thing. I wish I had yoga when I was in dental school and breathing. Else you'll just feel overwhelmed, which also you have to learn how to really, really organize yourself and get rid of the fluff, stuff that doesn't matter. And you also have to plan ahead. And I tell people all the time, the only way, someone had said this to me, is how you eat an elephant. And it's just one bite at a time. Now, yeah, you may not like it, but eat it, chew it, it'll actually come out. You know, but at least you get the job done. With dental school, not only do you have to worry about your didactic courses, clinical management, time management, getting along with your classmates, because you're going to be in this class with these people for the next 4 years of your life. You got to learn how to work with them. And you're so into this bubble that it's so intense that if you don't work with people, it will make your life miserable. So what you do is you pair off and you find friends, likenesses, and eventually you'll fight with them, but you all come back to one another. And you learn how to do this together, because this is the only way you're going to get through a program of this rigor without losing your mind. So what I learned to do was just to write down what I needed to accomplish with either in that day, that week, or that month. And instead of feeling like the avalanche or the snowball, would just take small bites every day and check things off. And if things weren't checked off for that day or that week, it just went to the next. But at least you feel some type of accomplishment knowing that you've actually done the things that you actually planned out to do. So after you take boards, decide and after you graduate, you have to decide what you want to do. Luckily within dentistry, you could do community dentistry, where you go work on a reservation and they pay all your money back. Now you can do corporate dentistry for big ones are Aspen Dental, that I know are taking over in the Midwest. You could offer to buy into a practice as an associate, or you can build your own. I started reading this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I saw this quote, and I thought it was so timely, because when you're a dentist, nobody asks you your class rank, what school you went to, how you did. They don't care about grades, and when you start making different connections outside of dental school as to the path that you want to go, people are feeling you out for your soft skills. You know, how personable you are, what's your chairside manner, how patient you are. It's not really how well you perform in school, because once you have your license, people just, fix my tooth, get me out of pain, make me look better. Now they will go on Google reviews and blast you for whatever reasons. So that's one thing that you have to think about as well. Now that you're out in practice, no matter which path you take, is that with social media, I haven't gotten favorable reviews. In some instances, there's always one side of the story. If you guys look at our reviews, we always reply. If we made a mistake, we acknowledge it. If we don't, if we didn't, we just say thank you and move on. But I thought that this was really, really fitting, because if you take the road that I took, which was private practice, it does take a lot of chutzpah, balls, audacity, bravado, tenacity, and brilliance. And that's basically by taking advantage of opportunities that were put before you. Just like I took the opportunity that was put before me at the Profiles in Success to go to Michigan, same thing I had to do when I decided to start my first practice. And I had to start my first practice out of necessity, because I have an uncle where I was practicing with him, but it didn't go well. And of course you're scared and you feel fearful. But the thing that I said was, the only person that I can bet on is myself, and I'd rather invest in myself and bet on myself than anybody else would or will. And so that's what I did. I opened up my first practice in 2008 on the south side of Chicago. Thank you. And then we gradually grew. I think every 5 years I grew the practice, where we opened up our second practice in Hyde Park. And I always say I'm not going to open up another practice after I've opened up one, because I said, well, I'm done, I'm well. But again, certain opportunities always come unbeknownst to me. And so I said, why not? If I did it, and the thing is once you open one, you can open another. It gets easier. So like with a nonprofit, you start here, but then you see growth, incremental growth every year, to where you may be here, today, but 10 years later you'll be here. But you can't have a fear. You have to take opportunities when they present themselves, because you never know if it'll come again. This is the uncle that was my mentor. His name is Eric Barnes. He was a Howard University graduate from both dental school as well as ortho. That's me on the end, and this is his daughter, Ashley. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is very rare. I think we're the only family with African American family in the country with 3 generations of working orthodontists. Thank you. It took a lot of hard work and effort on all 3 of our parts. Right now, we're all in private practices, which is slowly dwindling and being consumed by corporate dentistry for whatever reasons. So I said we got right in under, you know, that threshold of where now things are privately owned to becoming corporately owned, and that's just because of the amount of debt that students are taking out to go to school. I don't know if I could actually say I'm gonna ask my kids to go to dental school because of the cost that it has, that you have to incur to run a practice, keep things going, and still remain competitive in the marketplace. Let's see what this is how I organize and keep my life. This is how you can see my life. These are all planners that I have. Unfortunately, I'm not in a digital age where I can use my phone, and this drives my husband crazy because he's like, put it in the calendar, put it in the calendar. I'm like, I don't like the calendar. I like seeing this as a whole where I can lay it out, look from month to month, go back. I don't know what that is, but this is how I live my life. As a dental student, again, same principles. If you look in the back of my planners, I put in their goals for 2001. And it'll be from 7 to 10 things. And then at the end of the year, I'll look and I'll check everything off that I have accomplished, right? And then whatever's left over, I carry it over to the following year. I found that to be very helpful and very holding myself accountable. And so with that quote, there are no secrets to success. It's the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. And I tell people all the time, I guess the takeaways from this is never let anybody tell you no. Whatever your passion is, whatever you want to do, find alternate routes, you know. But be grateful for the failures, be grateful for the no's, because you use that as an incentive to push you. If you really want something, you're gonna go and get it. Ask my husband. If I really want something, I don't take no. Do I ever take no? No, not really. Yeah. So, you know, as you enter your career into dentistry or whatever field, I think there's just certain principles that we all have to, you know, accept. If you really want it, you're gonna work for it. It's not gonna be easy. You're gonna have failures, but that helps you rebound to capture your success. And you actually have to love what you want to do. So during the pandemic, a lot of things happened, a lot of blessings, a lot of things, you know, I don't know what it was, but I was very, very extremely grateful. This is our latest, this is our 3rd dental office that we built out. I actually closed the first one due to pandemic and spacing. Unbeknownst to me, when I was building this, the latest dental office, we were spaced for social distancing, so it just made sense to close one office and utilize this one for more efficiency. I found this building via my brother in his neighborhood. He said, Bonnie, I saw this building, it's for a good price, and I need you to come in here and you look at it. And basically, this is the inside of a 6,500 square foot garage. And this, you know, this is my 3rd one, so I like going into buildings like this and see a vision. And he says, you may not want it. And I'm like, look, I don't need to build another office. I don't want it. No, no, no. But when I walked in, I said, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I bought the building in 2017. We opened it up last year, and this is the orthodontic clinic from beginning to end. During that time, I applied for a city grant. I never wrote a grant, but I heard about it on the radio. And they said, this is the first year, so I downloaded the form and I just said, okay, whatever, I'll apply for it. Unbeknownst to me, we got it. And I was like, whoa, I actually got the grant. And this has been the biggest project. Yeah, Afro Joe's is my brother. The coffee shop is right next door. Okay, so in this building, on one side is the dental office, and on the other side, my brother, we gave him some space to incubate his coffee shop. So we got this grant based on that. The naysayers said, well, why are you building in this this neighborhood. I said, because nobody's there. There's no competition. But it's on the south side of Chicago. Okay, and they have money too. And they deserve a state-of-the-art dental office just like they do on the north side, downtown, north and west suburbs, south suburbs. So you can't be scared to take risks. You can't listen to the naysayers. Because at the end of the day, this has been my most profitable dental office in the shortest amount of time ever. I should have did this 5 or 6 years ago, but I didn't know about it. But once I found out about it and had the opportunity, not only did I purchase the building and build out the space, but the city gave me a $250,000 grant. It's a lot of money that I don't have to pay back. During that year, I don't know how these people found me, but they also featured me on the cover of a national magazine of my peers called Orthotown, and basically it just asked several questions. It came in, took pictures of the office and just asked me to practice philosophy and how to run the business. Still don't know how to run the business because I've never taken a business course. I don't have an MBA, but growing up in the field of dentistry, I always paid attention to what my uncle was doing and his peers. So I got a chance to just grow up in the field of dentistry, which is also an opportunity that I was blessed and fortunate enough to have. So again, these are some of, this is how I've navigated my life pretty much since coming to Albion because of the rigor, adapting to a new environment. I've had the best of both worlds. I've been able to go to a PWI and an HBCU, so I see the ups and downs of both of them. I take the best from both of them. I think they both have something to offer. I will say that the HBCU was the institute that I was able to really relax and enjoy my learning environment. Because it was just all that more nurturing because of familiarity. I think that's the benefit of what HBCUs offer. But the benefit of what Albion and Michigan offered was how to navigate the world, how to navigate environments that are uncomfortable, that are not familiar. So I tell people all the time, if you have the opportunity, because I tell my patients, you gotta go to grad school, there's no option. I'm like, your undergrad, yeah, it's an accomplishment. It's a great accomplishment, but you have to go further. So what I tell them is, try both. I think there's something to be taken away from every experience and every environment. So this is some of my work. This is what I love to do, is to change lives, create beautiful smiles. Right here is before treatment, and this is after treatment. So we do this all day, every day. I tell people, even on a bad day, I'm happy to walk into my office. And I think that's another thing. Choose a career that you love to do, not based on money, not based on status or anything like that. Because after a while, if you're burnt out and you hate your job, money, status, none of that will matter. It doesn't matter to me. As long as I have patients on the books, I'm great. My staff knows, keep me busy, keep me occupied. That's when I'm the happiest. When my schedule is empty and I have time to run around the office and get in everybody's business, it is not fun. Why is this not done? Why is this over there? So my staff overbooks, triple books me because they know I want to be in the back, I want to be in mouths, I want to be straightening teeth. And last but not least, this is the home team. We have Devden, we have little Miss Bella, and we have Brooke. So thanks for allowing me to come stand before you again, and you guys enjoy homecoming.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin-Burress. Let's give all of the students who participated today and all of our alumni another round of applause. A new tradition. My assistant dean here and I have established a new tradition that when alumni visit, we're asking them to write an encouraging note inside a journal and leave it so that when a student has a tough day, we can hand it to them and they can continue to be inspired beyond your physical presence. So we're asking that alum grab one, please, and if we miss you for whatever reason, or we don't have enough, please connect with me, because we'll send you one. Postage paid, so you can send it back, because it's really been an awesome initiative so far. Thank you to everyone for coming out today. I've learned so much about why I chose to work here. So I continue to remain inspired in service to the students who follow in your footsteps, and continue to remain inspired by all of you. Enjoy the rest of homecoming.